first target weapon development in the counter force targeting drive global arms racing standard 18 provided target the GBC should improve counter force targeting just suggested double the use which is the first target counter force targeting this is the German tech arms system readiness and increase the chance will be used regardless of other states are potential use will be stabilized for the life of the minute and QB standard gradually reduces success and force over time either unilateral or nuclear agreement specifically ICBM modernization generates reciprocal counter-strike pressure on Russia which drives development of their ICBM forces Perkovich 21 because Al's perfect enemy long range jumps could destroy the targets of the US ICBMs for television competitions circular Russian sites the US overall forces of international artillery style for attack multiple warheads and LUA in the Russian lexicon known as reciprocal counter-strike the plan ends the GBSD which sets the stage for arms control negotiations to phase out ICBMs entirely has no effect on deterrence or assurance but motivates arms control talks take 21 to pause the GBSD will buy more time for arms control with Russia doing so will assure officials that the US is not going to pass away to supply among allies and no motivate US and Russian delegations have to study for discussions surrounding your reductions. There's a good reason to extend and with the goal of decreasing ICBMs through agreements, possible changes, offsetting drawbacks of the perspective values, increasing sales, and government arms control makes force structure more viable, enable the which of the US should seek pressure reductions in this format that undermines the targeting rationale for Russian ICBM modernization and creates a positive feedback loop for arms control. Player 18 drawdown can be through arms control scrapping targets will pull out the right out for Russian targeting justification for arms including the SAR if US targets to be Russia could curb its heavy missile deployment. This would shorten Russian targets a positive feedback loop. Russia is open to further arms control talks despite other tensions. The US being the first mover is key. Countryman 23. The U.S. is part of that conditions discussing arms control welcome remarks. Russia would study with carrying a proposal that was in keeping with the long tradition for 6 years. Washington wants to keep nuclear separate from all other tensions for arms control. Not brain surgery. Not only treating seconds simple weapon. No treating groups whose warheads and caught up in the environment. But every success has required rather than waiting to resolve all differences. Striking each to assume Russia will not resolve instantly. Arms control require the U.S. to take the lead. A revived arms control infrastructure prevents global arms racing and existential conflict. Arbitrage 21. A new large-scale arms race augmented offensive and defense on new overseas and Saturday passes trees. Will chill out of India, China, Pakistan, Korea, Japan, and others. Brace and Ottoman. Our both around this idea will the nuclear those through the nuclear monopoly failed to target terrorists and this serves security of the contextual limitations of actions goes to Missouri and Lucy bring new foreign crisis along the MSF just are parallel with the changes in strategic environment negotiations provide the foundation for cooperating scenes utopia now for extension that the situation can change quickly before the better and a essential for survival human civilization specifically ending the GBSD creates momentum on arms control that limits Russia's StarMat ICBM system Perkovich 21 a key objective to be to produce a greatest sensibility style of ICBM to play the star for avant-garde boost glide at each style force and just for the other strategic interaction create setups that possibly use ICBM simply could be enhanced by destroying less drivable systems at the time being as bright each the country's planning planning top pitch at Syria and development GBC on the drawing board target GBC StarMat represent concern much for hosting agreement should be there could be ICBM possible deployment create incentives to negotiate the StarMat creates Russian use or lose pressure triggers nuclear accidents line the 17 we're entering competent modernization to increase make any country beast large for target versus the fire first bomb the heavy vulnerable ICBM large the thermology stability and labor improve by country learn burning and throwing weights in mod context system meanwhile Russia's will placing heavy ICBM too big too high to move they ignore the R-20 is lucky as such a second story in which Russia deployed to stabilizing heavy advantage. 2 is procurement. The Sentinel program is imploding. This will trigger a massive fight about re-upping authorization. Come on to 1214. The new ICBM risk deployment is caused by so much that air runs trigger on review with a deterrent is also trigger lush more than the lawmakers are forced to for the Russian Reservation Termination Measure till their cause increase will enable an arms but advocacy press for termination papers and made it Pentagon have to request more funds to major the challenges that matter cause of construction. It'll go through and consume the entire DoD and Delta Defense Special 1221. It costs for identification according to the Gen 25 Sentinel is one of the most complex programs ever taken other projects. Zero is funding which cover the cost of years and we are learning 50% of the cost growth of the Air Force and office and security needs that one because in the entire DoD budget in this difficult constrained environment extra release of Sentinel will cover the cost of other critical programs that exist related to establish holds laser carriers as well as infrastructure problems of the program struggling due to unknowns and still will not meet deadlines. Hard constraints such as pay production ensure trade-offs and that degrades leg in the short term. Quarter 21, the GBSD new face inevitable single delays administered by like jumps once the experience fully weapon that transitions up a completion to the warhead the GBSD are on impossible timelines week 7 plan and understands and ICBM circle in us agreed over impossible single protocol experience which were cancelled about on the GBSD were triggered depletion of ICBM force below these are levels in nature viable ICBM will the first option resolve smaller force political cannot offer both triggers the GBSD will G prioritizing other programs are physical time bombs suspending bow wave will crush conventional deterrence through trade-offs debt and blunt cuts by Congress brief and England 18 to recall this entire arsenal that's by system then each program increases the time each absence of plan will result in some optimal choices like depending on group of leaders deny this the worst. The American Central Reductions of Modified Improve Acquisition of Government Fiscal Allies is desirable to add to $13 trillion in debt over the decade. Entitlements and interest payments paid to tourists and taxes will pressure this last defense policy warning is marginal far from assured gliding from simple affordable obfuscate the severity of the budget problem does not account for cost for the expansion of revisions as service level particularly starting first. New ICBM will compete with service priority spending but triple kill learn before which a start compelling aims capable of capable of project like spot security and likely for proposal collapse for production based on physical political pressure other strategic decisions billions are squandered every dollar to boost bolstering nuclear campus unknown nuclear counter Russia and China causes great power war depth to Latin Gunslinger 22 that West created no smaller air force bases critical against China created massive faster the areas only aircraft front response to D1 to D8 competition second to turn nuclear protection and Russia organized without opportunity to attack the Nadir will occur in 6 years time and the China could assault on what it budgets to defend China Russia adversaries to pursue aggressive behavior trade-offs and doctrine degrade evolving deterrence against Emerging existential threats. Cutting the Sentinel was key for RE-22 and mid-kill competitors spent decades to undermine deterrence and potential options like gaps in for munitions about ancient when I say inputs. Double assisting countries belongs to the China and modern day back law to understand price while the money lack of maturation in the culture of the US vulnerable to any US central system attack. The plan of pandemic terror deterrence and anarchy so style force foundation of defense resilience, hold migration, preserving info, biointegrity, the whole society for separate was an existential threat critically to the society for the table sushi guns and personally thought they looked from sleep. Decisive advantages flexible autonomy shows without purchasing inflation to actually stagnation. The purchasing price limited abstract for spending allocations in this traditional chicken little here, but it is counterproductive instead that will try from the US central plasmatic walls and info. Control bio could be really so static control be little infrared hybridization or no good China use. Terrorist hard to control the air fortune for your situation to eliminate redundant capacity for resources have other priorities versus process trying to be reallocated with stand threats. The plan solves reallocation, saves deterrence from the cutting board better, and Reef-19 ISOs is valuable instead of a cost of $1,900 per cost is source of bonus value continuing to pay. Then if you want to pay other priorities for your origin spray power coverage that 55B21 and you tinker independently ongoing possession creates use or lose pressures only phase out solve starboard 21 false ones or system not air or theory perspective access to the inevitable overrace or keys operates political pursuits self-interest goals or fully understand even by participants and special attack consequences of pure people who because of biases other uninformed suffers. And it's a bizarre interaction coming in relation interactions and there's no flex and slack safety and redundancies are restricted to those pleasure to some ICM's clearly preference. The launch advantage and accuracy diminish over time. You ICM suggest clear purpose for preemption as Mr. Reddick the people of course nobody other enormous switching use there to create face records in the region through passage and access do not occur to be catched up with empirical markets such as like appreciation of restoral on front where these ICM is a presumption piece had one been called buster to warning since the things may have gone further. The Sentinel spikes accident risk uniquely eves 21 cells would launch one close to just because air have to such computers the GBC for instance auto reading American phase out blind based on study including economic evolve the doors came into nations well-being and coming to problem with a low probability is eventually going to happen. So does Ukraine. O'Donnell 23 Putin suspended new start sharing influence real consequences and actual changes in the next 10 years 120 hour calculation of recent developments that will be much worse. Plan the United States should phase out intercontinental ballistic missiles halting replacements for the LGM-30 Minuteman solvency. The plan cancels ICBM modernization. This eliminates the ICBM leg of the triad through a gradual phase out as missiles reach the end. A feasible life extension by around 2065 hertz and lead to 17 GBC is most aggressive, but that can be realistic as a unit GBC may ultimately limit the ground triad or approaching the limit lifespan bullshit. The 90s point recoil missiles modern guns and upgrade guns and commercial systems so the test. And then we're going to stay up 400 through 2050 number of decline until record missiles reach end life to not procure new fleet cost, but spread over decades. The Sentinel was just flagged for a critical breach of non-McCurdy requirements. The Pentagon can unilaterally cancel a Turbock 118 Gen 18 Air Force a notification of critical non-McCurdy breach head for termination such as Austin. The Department of Central General Chair doesn't permit third party and then other limited to pay. Zero downsides. One life extension is technically feasible per commission body 21. The Air Force now is supposed to approach missiles 327.5 straight line recovery to permission to more for percentage, but is there a long advanced extension rated including commercial life extension feasible with at least cost safe here and consumptive tests as well. That's an efficiency simulation may reduce the input of the same potential long failures for states without problem errors. The groups do not meet the need. Even if projected failure rates increases, has no effect toward the 21 and 30 the core has been the failure 1.3% average result target every single review which one show which the judge will drop Air Force life extensive will not be effective with except ICBM deterrence because need to exist in things and minimum would produce the same deterrence. 2. Deterrence. ICBMs don't affect war outcomes. Their studies are biased 120 and 21, replacing them by minute with the PGBs is hotly recent announcement creating the method charges to the dash also the possible overestimated ignorance system is supposed to be missiles and unit accuracy fears or as equal to not have to record their one report is going to be arbitrarily divided for the so much yields more so when it's used in several guys using to be able to record when it's these also be authors the method of jargon supports kind of first expressions people since really was substance and I to report the right so it makes no sense to target as far as to reallocate this kind of Russian second check as and not represent and Russian as also six measures by the this working second secretary without wording for discussion or proposal to eliminate as and Charlie Bottom after as well as reserve school reduction say life of being written with as much country as the secretary all word or bunch of long term countries are comparable as much from the normal has obstruction. The only move is not to play their only task against Russia due to overflight concerns quarter 21 ICE was trying to or no collaborative Russia took a mistake launch avoid confusion since the bombers have sent to commission ICE and so the world Russia club through hotline returns will be for alternate trajectories could launch again the risky at considerable expense. God, I didn't get that last one.
Yeah, right. save it. The plan text says phase out intercontinental ballistic missiles, halting replacements for the LGM-30 Minutemen. When does, so first, is there a point where ICBMs no longer exist?
The plan phases it out, so it doesn't fiat a certain time or year when those, like the Minuteman no longer extends, because that's up to the military. But if you're asking if we're topical, then yes.
Well, does it phase out, like does it like fiat phasing out ICBMs?
Yeah.
Like it is a mandate of the plan that ICBMs at one point will no longer exist, or can military planners decide that ICBMs
at one
should still
point
exist?
they will no longer exist. They cannot exist infinitely, so it is elimination, but the process is phase out.
Okay, so like just to clarify, military planners cannot, as a result of the plan, say, oh, we want to keep some ICBMs. Like all ICBMs at one point will be gone.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. The first advantage about arms control, my first question is GBSD exclusively a first strike weapon, or does it have second strike capabilities or
well, like
utilization?
GBSDs are modernized ICBM that is probably capable of second strike, but like the reason why they're destabilizing is because they offer a counter strike or like a threat of counterforce to Russia, and that is why they're developing the SARMAT, which are uniquely MIRV ICBMs. The reason why is to deal with the increased warhead count and capabilities that GBSD
So is Russia only, so is the scenario specifically for arms racing or whatever just a SARMAT, or are there other destabilizing weapons that Russia's developing as a result of GBSD first strike capabilities?
Well, yeah, like that's an example, but the that's an example of a specific weapon, but the
and just to clarify, the plan,
Arbatov evidence talks about just like general.
And the SARMAT is a Russian sub, correct?
It's a Russian
Russian ICBM. So my second question is the plan. It causes a drawdown of SARMAT, presumably not the mandate, but it's resolved vis-a-vis arms control talks, correct?
Right.
Does the plan indicate anything about where Russia would allocate that funding towards?
But what
No.
we see has not said anything about that. The thing we have said is that
Okay.
their ICBMs are like our ICBMs.
How much time did you?
Actually, I'm gonna start.
And then off of this.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Sure this. Okay. Okay, 1C set. It's 7 arms control procurement.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, 7 and then arms control and procurement.
I told Sarah and we were fighting this morning, and she said, "What if instead you came together and spent peace and love?"
Oh, we should.
I haven't gotten them yet. Just kidding. Just did.
Okay.
Oh, it is round 5. I live on my shirt round 4. Well, whatever. Okay.
Are you all good?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone good?
Mm-hmm.
First, this tonicality should require certainty. Immediacy, settler, at 19. The word should is being not at a later time, aspiration, leading, not the entire term, and restrictions must be immediate. The Cabinet Supreme Court of India 16. What does restriction mean? Any limitation be real, immediate law, immediately restriction, middle law, leave it, removal repercussions can be considered to be a restriction. They violate gradual phase outs or bad because it makes a topic limitless starting. Phase out any modernization program they eventually do a blank which shows all core and ground next to the first right counterplan. The United States should order the launch of 10 modified Minuteman 3 W-87 intercontinental ballistic missiles at thermonuclear ignition points on Jupiter and Saturn. The plan eliminates ICBMs so the counterplan uses them to nuke Jupiter and Saturn, turning them into suns of key to terraform and colonize Mars and other satellites of Jupiter and Saturn feel intent heating up Martian atmosphere could release carbon dioxide to under greenhouse effect of green temperatures close to those in Earth and create an atmosphere and planetary water cycle. The Welsh reaction might be ideal for Mars reaction requires high temperature, so only realistic sources quantities are the two gas types Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn and Jupiter unite, transforming our solar system and treat our system and warming the other moons, making them habitable. The only way which prevents Saturn and Jupiter from uniting lack of external activity source the solution require the thermonuclear triggers unite them. Only possibility will fall the trigger, but a thermonuclear actor with 3 gas drives might be devastated. Thermonuclear solidification inside thermonuclear bombs fission trigger current temperatures of 35 million K. Obviously, supposedly detonation of several megaton thermonuclear warheads at the giant planet space rocket death at least 2% of detonated nuclear charge. The chain reaction propagates in substantial part of the planet's mass and becomes self-sustainable, delivering light and heat as we pass the most significant away for warming the red planet. Lithium with gas forms like atmosphere, Earth-like temperatures and high degrees supporting terrestrial or micro-organization without the charge would be carried 10 87 warhead solidification will only allow mankind to terraform and colonize satellites, but also Mars would greenhouse effect leading cosmology for required to terraform the planet. Something could be achieving using thermonuclear detonations that cause small compared to such a great potential in space. Will be terraforming is key to avert inevitable extinction from thousands of potential existential risks, which in 19 there are literally thousands of probable catastrophic serious system. Not very supposedly the Earth is a collision course, solid neurosonic black hole, quantization, illumination, such a cataclysmic collision that a series of very small probabilities has been organized. There's analysis of large asteroid colliding with the Earth's communication can survive on Earth limits will fraction of many potential due to natural calculation. We developed space technology, the terrestrial virus racing was listening unique and followers were part of the multiple humans only data colonize and terraform Mars. Next is the politics, etc. Tax credit extension passes now by species key Phillips 119. The White House version Congress passed for partisan tax in the child tax credit. The full house at the end of the month, House against my party next to the one will be defined. Resort the child tax for the my portion of the law comes up forward for the Congress and capacity knowledge need the tax to offer when so that both parties can take home to voters and nuclear posture changes tanks Biden's PC clean and they want to Biden review American nuclear policy efforts and indicated Biden wants to arms into White States will out PC he can spend long to the limited change and take leadership focus and attention over many years since CTC reverses the aging crisis spender in 19 larger promulgated population solution is a decent income through tax benefits and equals family size over the market related to reverse the aging crisis child tax credit with the citizens back more workers and levels party too large enough to reverse it demographic time bomb extinction blood of 20 demographic is an aging factor for the existence of civilization or wide and create hazards for society relating the global problems of retirement poor fees and natural area health and education resources for societies decreasing due to aging shortage of labor causes social problems economic problems affect water food energy work fuels environment and climate resolving problems in future times. Next is the president counterplan. The Republican presidential candidate for 2024 United States general elections publicly announced United States phasing out intercontinental ballistic missiles causing replacement for the LG. The M30 is the top campaign priority. Nuclear elections are massive campaign liability because they see the weak benefits narrative. Fisherman in 22. Reviews expected to endorse nuclear weapons include ICBM by design for the this will be first use by don't have to confront entrance nuclear broad Steven scale challenge task force 9 unique nuclear policy is provided domestic factors including levy by the defense industry those who nuclear support disaster these restriction and weakness agreements with adversaries is concession by the defense has been here for decades can nuclear weapons liability for campaigns and that's good. Trump presidency locks in catastrophic warming the key and 20 Trump produced best things outcome embassy has really for worst case scenario that him likely be irreversibly transformed with like 2 degrees raising odds of catastrophic tipping points his policies will cause a 3.1 gigatons for 2035 countries off up here says causing it to unravel warming cause extinction in 19 climate change cause extinction deal in a later cascading feedback multiplicity results in tipping points, ice sheets, glass, cost up, and sea level rise, multi increasing warming and carbon release of methane produced runaway warming allowed to political limit to making extinction likely moderate models unlikely low if there's 1% probability extinction is more important by a trillion. Next is the MQD counterplan. The Department of Defense should publish an agency memorandum stating that it has the authority to phase out intercontinental ballistic missiles, halting replacements with the LGM 30 minute and the United States Congress should challenge the memorandum on the grounds that it did not grant the agency express authorization over the phasing out of intercontinental ballistic missiles, halting replacements with the LGM 30 minute and the Supreme Court of the United States should rule in favor of the agency. The counterplan overturns the MQD that's due to effective financial warfare measure and in 23 the rise of the MQD delegate executive rule off questions and rules statutory scheme Congress let into executive review of foreign affairs and anti-viral lobby sanction against the Asian worker based on the election rules and MQD for unreleased by conflict conflicts terrorism preliminary economic measures steps burning file MQD then MQD applies second guessing judge second guessing executive yourself knowledge and training contributing the legal system and exchange trivial linear hotspots Richmond in 17 era of economic warfare trying to defend sanctions in Taiwan for service responsive restrictions on the impose penalties states trying to towers one order triggering great power war economic combat and the multi saying with aid against those found in the individual by smashing resistance and infilling object tools by the people's purpose self-proclaiming economic that will be establishing some deterrent in the gray zone. Next is the Russia view. Putin is pushing on population modernization now to convince its public and effective Russian second strike defense, but that's their only purpose. The plan eliminates its primary driver. It opens up streams that get redirected in 23 and opens Putin choice to invest in submarines or investment guarantees against American nuclear attack by analytical second to the criminal spending investment power submarines slowly will change from the Pacific submarines come with the extensive resources allocated to other branches of the military. They demonstrate how safe for Nebraska can be Putin. It can ill afford to remain this program for the continent threat and the West represents why he must now prove the public's taken necessary measures also keep back and playing uphold and standing among his powers. Specifically, submarinization has been prioritized over 2 other systems, the Rubez and the Bardugan, because of the status of the plans. Status session reports funding back from these projects 123 and kilometers status symbols status highlights the vacation short and of prestige. These weapons can see the political women's safety and military enhanced status and prioritize novels nuclear sub-storage priorities the extensive other systems Rubez and Barskas and status locations modernization across nuclear tribes maintain status in multiple speeches and reviving the ghost train opens up terrible and release Roland and 20 Moscow institutional successor called the Moscow and the new ghost train could mount to 6 ballistic missile programs that perform bishop measures innovate and I rallied the problem swollen out programs when he has economy contract the missile trains and left have a 10-year plan, net free of funding for critical programs, Western Career Revive, Church circumstances, change survey, problems, with exposure to terrorists, attacks, girls, not difficult to destroy, transport, difficult to track dead, and terrorism is the most probable scenario for nuclear war rolling, and 22 nuclear terrorist event could be tablets for much larger nuclear exchange. Think about leading nuclear weapon sites. We have to worry about Russia's action. The biggest risk of a catastrophic nuclear event comes from miscalculated RPC use. Next, the advantage counterplay. The United States should fully fund the ICBM's leg of the arsenal without taking funds from other defense items and fully fund the air leg of the arsenal. Next, the arms control advantage. ICBM reductions will assure Russia trip all 22 being functions countermeasures missile defense and just may agree to reduce ICBM's level reduction likely. Though, as far as long as there be concerns about use, missile defense remains unaddressed and no credibility. Single track changes are not credible and useless. HRSF et al. 21 benefits SCB achieve the US fundamentally change our instruction nuclear force and loss conviction force. No doubt the US SP declared plus use ever series. See nuclear weapons means for dealing with the Russian Washington could use significant scale back weapons in other situations that are limited and nuclear wars. For example, ICBMs with the insufficient fuels would be addressed by subs and conventional precision straight average series prepare for the worst case scenario rather than trust the words on which we series portion would have to relinquish its key strategic beliefs nuclear non-nuclear like multiple use military's preeminence and there's no risk of arms control. Russia pockets the concession if advantage 2 is correct. Cost 718 if it is or the ICBMs when Russia eliminate all their ICBMs and less likely a larger portion of those Russia will be carried out here to the US. Russia places multiple words ICBMs seem unlikely Russia to gain to every civil elimination of ICBMs will collapse from the transition to be then discussions with negotiation likely to know with Russia and China wants to secure their advantage being designed here to be swayed by pressure. Putin appears to believe that the belief defense spending on nuclear forces will drive economic prosperity and defense be equal to defending growth. Strategic deterrent remains top priority for which Russia will experience no effect. The act does not solve their evidence about ending the GBSD says that it should be paused. Arms control fails for Lansing goes in 22 Russian basing forces and positive projectile and reducing nukes activities already proven damage in arms control. This form after arms control is understanding that or highlights limits preventing international escalation of the war, demonstrated limits focus on avoiding inadvertent escalation, Russian invasion, not accent, Russian Chinese strategies involving manipulation, Russian independent reliance and nuclear coercion. They want to reduce this. Russia constantly vital arms control obligation Moscow drawn down for participation in activities, decreasing transparency, backs of action, nuclear threats, and increasing value to autocrats being relied on nukes throughout Ukraine. Intentions of China may be a harbinger for challenges, deterring competitors, future arms control, attitude, adjustment will means traditional tools mean struggle. Arms control will only be one could create unilateral opportunities for the other to address and pursue strategic stability. There's no Russia impact. Rogan 22 the intent of Putin to the dangerous escalation to destroy Russian unity. Sunday first time Putin the rest has the before nuclear strike would not be Russia's interest. The criminal appears to be strong by Westernization of postponing economy where Russia detonating nuclear warhead would precipitate global economic isolation. Western process a carrying impulse is far from certain Russian forces clear nuclear attack personnel, no nuclear strike would enhance catastrophic sanctions, segregation, Russian military, and other Russians other iniquities exacerbate risk. The procurement advantage, the advantage is a double term. The first is that Russia looking for a window of opportunity to expand. The first advantage is that Russia responds to the with reciprocal drawdowns in cutting the ICBM force results in negligible savings and massive short-term costs. According to all 21 million is the cheapest like cutting ICBM movie quarter would not be result in 25% discount annual saving ICBM like cut less than 1% and cost savings would depend on the Williams decide to allocate the ICBM direction currently for the MP's house because arbitrators not know which house he had force with on need to expand to nuclear warhead per 50 silos on 50 anti-silos missile silos left in India as free for long enable arbitrators to determine which silos MPA operating costs would not be reduced shutting down the entire clean result in short-term costs including moving missiles transporting warheads launching structures and environmental claim. It doesn't solve deterrence. Funding would not be properly redirected and if it's true that there are tons of fights now there's no risk of accidents by which in 23 there's a divide between accidental war literature models and theories of central is that something that it results in more pollution change without choice in war. I've written this minute in the case can correspond to current targets of this discussion this as a leader choice in wars accidental seeking warning seems to be about incomplete promoting an effective likelihood is through making info complete and token legislative leaders would choose a good war but not effective war chance included who's already accounted for both logic and contradicted accidental wars laws one believe the military can be a cause for war and ICBMs are secure now there's no chance of accidental launch alert and 21 claim that ICBMs are inherently trivial military leaders that to the false commanders of US Army and clear territorial leading ICBMs are responded with national launch being naturally no use from attack would occur with tensions or conventional conflict making false alarm probable use returns use does retain the optional launch adversaries launch arsenals can try use ICBMs for president the optional launch multiple using their accidental upgrades ICBM launch impossible ICBMs are not nearly loaded gun nor is their big red gotten given the safeguards required launch ICBMs critical role in deterring launch kills tax pass and retire the claim of hair trigger alert and ICBMs are affordable according to 18 nuclear modernization rate of 5% of events for their responsible this are global spending ICBMs least causally pacing nuclear fixed is very expensive building SUV left but our annual operating cost estimated 1.4 billion cost savings should have priority then ICBM should not be that on the chopping block.
Did you read a couple cards that weren't in here?
One that traces them.
I'm looking at it right now.
So you carry starting prep? You said?
Actually, yeah, we'll wait for the cards, but then
Yeah.
I want to ask the first question.
Okay, should be set.
Okay. Russia decide what is the internal link to Russian investments in submarines?
The first advantage says the plan results in Russian drawdown, like
Of the
reciprocal-
Sarmat, which is not a sub.
Well, we think that the plan actually results, like, we think that you read evidence that speaks more broadly to arms control, not just in the context of ICBMs, but even if it's not true that that's what the 1AC evidence says, the side that evidence says that if the US were to like result in drawdowns and Putin were to result in drawdowns, then subs modernization would go.
Okay, so Russia no longer thinks that the U.S. is a threat of a first strike, and they modernize the rest of their nukes. Why?
So
Like, why do they still revitalize the
think-
ghost
so-
train?
Our evidence indicates that there's particular interest from the public for novel nuclear weapons because they're a showcase to the global world of the power that Russia could be. So, for example, they will invest in things like the Ghost Train because those are novel nuclear weapons, things that no country has that Russia could uniquely possess. That's distinct from things like Sarmat, which are
What do they
specifically
need
designed
them
first
for
strike.
if your link evidence spots that the West is no longer a threat to Russia?
Because our argument is about public interest in projecting Russia as a
Wait, so,
global
like,
dominant
Sorry,
force.
your internal link card is like Russia has prioritized novel nuclear weapons at the expense of things like the Bargusan or the Ghost Train. So that implies that the Ghost Train is not a novel nuclear weapon, right?
No,
so if
well,
you're
so
right that the
like,
public is looking
first
for
is just
novel
like no
nuclear
other
weapons.
country has a nuclear train. First of all,
What
okay.
does that
Second of all,
mean?
it means that there is literally nukes that are on a train that use civilian train tracks. Like that is what the
Okay,
Ghost Train is.
so-
That's what the Bargusan is.
Like
No other country has
You
that. We
said
read
that
evidence.
nuclear weapons are a status symbol. What's the reason that the AF changes the status that is brought by nuclear weapons?
Well, because you have read an advantage that says the plan results in Russian nuclear drawdowns, and we have said that when Russia engages in nuclear drawdowns from a practical perspective,
Well, the plan
because
results in Russia like drawing down their Sarmat system. But,
right,
like,
and that
you said
results,
that subs are important for status.
and that results in Russia shifting to these other forms of funding. Like we read evidence that anytime there's a drawdown
Why
in
wouldn't
funding,
the plan just cause Russia to shift to subs because they have now eliminated Sarmat and they need to?
well, because you've identified, like in our evidence identifies that if Russia were to result in funding away from nuclear programs, which the AF has said result, like those are the arms control negotiations that the AF results in, then that funding would shift towards less practical. If it's true, if case is true, then that would shift away from like practical nuclear components because Russia believes the U.S. threat
Wait, so like,
is no longer there towards these like status symbols.
what's the reason that would mean we don't invest in the sub and we do invest in the Ghost Train versus like, oh, like the Russia no longer has an ICBM, so let's invest in the Ghost Train?
Like, I think that the answer, like, I don't think my answer is going to be different from what I just said. That it's like when funding is redirected away from practical purposes, our evidence says that it's towards status symbols.
The resident counterplan does not attempt to solve the case, right?
No. Well, yeah, like we'll make arguments about
Oh,
a different presidency like solving the case, but the mandate of the counterplan text direct does not like result in the plan.
and then status is an
Conditional status is always a logical option.
Gotcha. First strike counterplan is competitive. Why?
Because the plan makes it such that we no longer have.
That's super
ICBMs.
wrong. The counterplan fiats Minuteman 3s, which we have after the plan. What do I need to
So,
say
like,
anything
there-
other than do both for
Like,
this page?
so, like several different things. First of all, in several places of the 1AC, you said we need to eliminate and phase out ICBMs in their totality.
Yep, but the counterplan orders a strike. We have 400 of them, so the counterplan takes us
So,
down to
if you're gonna
390, and then the
go-
plan gets rid of the
If you're
390.
gonna go for the argument that the plan eventually, like, because the plan's not immediate, then, like, the counterplan's not competitive, then we're
Sure.
obviously gonna say that it's bad that the plan's not immediate, because we should be able to say
Well-
we should use ICBMs against an AF that tries to say
you
ICBMs
can.
are
You
bad.
can just say we should use the Sentinel, but that's fine.
Okay, like, we'll change the text to, like, keep it ICBM.
Oh.
Sure. Like, what is-
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't have the Sentinel.
It's also, I know this is pretty.
Like, what do you mean? Like, these are existing ICBMs. You said all ICBMs should have.
This was
eventually
one
be
AC
eliminated.
cross X where like, is there
Well,
any
you
scenario where
raised this,
ICBM?
right?
You didn't like make this
It's fine.
distinction.
Yeah. Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. The spending counterplan, where does it get the money from? Our evidence says that the program will cost 13 trillion over the next 10 years
We could tax the 1%.
and take 13 trillion dollars from them.
We could take like all their money, yeah.
And sorry, this avoids the link to politics.
I don't think we're gonna claim that though.
So then that benefit is the other business?
The what?
Just the other disads?
Yeah.
Okay. JC is sent. It's the arms control page, the procurement page, T, advantage counter plan, nuke the planets, MQD, Trump, CTC, arms control bad. For the Russian side. I'm gonna pretend that I do, so. Okay, that was too much. 52. Nora, did you send me the thing? The space code defense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, are we good? Great. One and C1 ICBMs are our first check weapon, which is what makes missile defense scary because it mops up a retaliation. 1 and C2 is about NFU total whip. 1 and C3, yes, arms control are willing now. We have read 2023 evidence. This person no cost is 5 years old, and our evidence says that it doesn't need to be formalized in a treaty, but then it causes mutual reductions because both of our ICBMs are pointed at each other, so reducing the number of targets that Russia's ICBMs have causes drawdowns. 1 and C4, the APTA solves it into the modernization program. 1 and C5, yes, arms control doesn't need to be an explicit treaty, and we've read evidence from 2023 that they're willing to come to the table now with the US acts first. 1 and C6, yes, Russia impact are modernizing this the format, which is uniquely unstable because it's America is also bolstered by there is an arms race which is bolstered by a conventional, which is bolstered by an unstable conventional environment, which ensures escalation and cascading proliferation, which they dropped impact the procurement advantage. So 1 and C1 is wrong. Russia is expanding conventionally. Russia is expanding conventionally. It's not a double turn. Russia is expanding conventionally, not doing nuclear expansion, which we need to start. 1 and C2 grading flubs the numbers. That is the one AC card on the solvency page. It says that our evidence says that it will cost 13 trillion over the next 10 years. 1 and C, whatever the last card they read was, the ICBMs are not secure now. Our evidence is about organizational inefficiencies that ensure that cascading failure modes. So there's no impact to deterrence. 1 and C4, yes, it's off deterrence because there is funding for these programs, or the programs exist in the status quo, but they funding needs to be reallocated from the Sentinel. 1 and C5, yes, accidents, organizational culture ensures it because ICBMs give you 5 minutes to think, and cascading failure modes ensure that because of socio-political complexity ensure. 1 and C6, that is not affordable. That is incident above cost 13 trillion over the next 10 years. T1 elimination includes gradual stage reduction to 0, then Komodo 20. The bell calls for a phase of 35 and 30, 50, criminally over time, which is great that eliminate convicts as suddenness and conflict with stage reduction. The addition identifies for to mean across the disappearance of the definition is compatible with a process leading a gradual to reduction to 0. Restrict is not certain or immediate or does not specify a process. Grammar 95 restriction is a limitation without a necessary reference to the process that led to the placement of that restriction. Should is not immediate or certainly at all 15. Should is permissive, not mandatory. Should means no with an obligation of expediency is not an expense and well could grounds of all should is used to describe obligation opinion mischaracterizes these as mandatory. 2 for nukes, it's a freeze down followed by a phase out. Will solve and all 3 elimination would need to including verified freeze on current activities in a process that takes years to complete. 3 after innovation we have to start it now and end at 0, so innovation has to happen in between. Focus on the process of elimination. The requirement for immediacy makes that impossible. That always avoids stillness, and the office forces to defend drastic changes to a stable status quo. 4 bad counterplans. There's no integral eliminate, but slowest as the money see what lay up ICBMs bad, not immediate elimination. Key 5 is the most real world. Instant dismantlement is impossible. You can't just snap your fingers. 6 predictability is physically impossible to be instant, so eliminate now must mean eliminate by a secret element we can't know in advance. 7 solves limited grounds because they can say ICBM's good. 8 reasonability committee in terms of race to the bottom. The advantage kind of plan 1 do about the shields and link grabbing the plan looks safe and part of a coordinated two-matter strategy and giving the military infinite money, which swaps the link to their decides 2 links in a better kind of signal. It causes political infighting, or it solves the link to obviously it leads to politics. That was cross-sex, and it solves the link to the Russian side because it would cause Russian remodernization. The funding everything fails. 8 decreases the ICBM alone will spiral. Reese says it'll triple. Mesh says it'll eat the DoD, causes extinction. Cochrane 20 doubles. We find its bad taxes economically destructive and crisis may result in maybe inflation. Imagine we have another crisis may never go where it's a huge recession. The U.S. needs to borrow 10 trillion investors out to see and refuse the U.S. leader to follow crisis mitigation policies. Our rates were low until they weren't. Nobody believed they expected that crisis already would have happened. We cannot tell what complication will come. We can remove the kindling beast. Spending bites will cause indiscriminate costs which make everything ineffective. That's Ferrari. C. Inflation and cap spending depreciates city units purchasing power. That's Ferrari. 3 or 4 perm do both offsetting capabilities. Purchase using counterpoint. 7 money surely solves the link. 5 the counterpoint rates a blank check for everything everywhere all at once. Foreign policy which ensures imperial overstretching trades. Often about 6 finding that is vital for a whole of society resilience for impact, which is the one at sea. Or when I see Ferrari evidence of a job above 20. Grabs on the civilian government, they want to resent the budget goes to social services, but they want to say rich or poor, the country needs to see opposite expensive military needs to justification finds that in interventions on compromise, more maximum domains, seriously damaging security and prestige, the right influence, money, great power, labor, otherwise socially useful conduct should be justified by strategic planning. New planets, one, do both, because we have been a minute after the plan 2, it obviously doesn't solve the case. 3 new planets are bad, it causes uncertainty and the effects are noble ex ante, so you shouldn't roll the dice or bet on the nuclear complex. 4, even if they amend the counterpoint text, it doesn't solve because we don't have the Sentinel currently, which means that we can't order a strike, but fiating both obviously means that it reduces the opportunity cost. 5, any colony would be too dependent on Earth for resources. Human society is too complex to survive without support. 18. Colony must produce food, water, and oxygen impossible on Mars with cold war in radiation. The equipment must function. It definitely must be possible to repair without supplies from the Earth. That self-sufficiency requires a large number of survival. Requires genetic diversity. The soil on Mars is fatal. There is a lot of doubt about whether planet crops can survive the perchlorate risk explosion, complicating oxygen dependence. It's hard to avoid high-tech devices not going to be designed there. I'm extremely excited on the colony. 100 Mars in the next century could sustain itself without Earth, nor will send that card. 6, conditionality, obvious clash, contradictory options of proliferation, no cost options, 5, 6, using the expense of in-depth deterrence and assurance, research and debates. This will let's do we see punish lobbying in case the parts we perm. MQD 1, do both. The counterpoint causes often to not submit a review. The plan only fiats Congress as a plan. 2, do the counterpoints must be textually and functionally. The counterpoint agrees the plan is good, which undermines core offense and shifts from robust deterrence to make determinate process. 3, certainty is key. Retaining the possibility the Sentinel comes back can't reduce Russian first strike pressures because they perceive an existential threat. And 4, immediacy is key. Sentinel budget overshoot. And the Russian first strike are coming in the short term due to Starmine modernization. 5, do the plan the counterpoint over phasing out quote intercontinental missiles is sexually legitimate because it redacts the redacts language from the plan, applying the counterpoint action to a new object is limited and test remainedness, which ensures that the neck needs a link card for their position. 6, no spillover exposure of our cases solved, but the president will be limited in capital foreign policy. 7, procurement page, turns economic combat and leadership. 8, foreign policy, demands foreign policy starting to demand political stability. I can bear 15. Critical and stabilizing iron in a world of radical power disparity conquered over America. The radical side of work and policy over the reach of had just been driven by efforts to render power more predictable, but sure, institutions made unpredictable. The regularized rate policies were made to reduce the prices. SOP creates a system that reduces their aggressive moves against MSC to skin confuse foreign observers. 9, I think sanctions are bad and fail. They know 18 promoted 6 all the benefits of that offer, providing evidence to our government really sacrifice fundamental interests to respond to economic pressure. They respond to resisting even more fiercely, even enhanced penalties rarely. Changes record communism continues in Cuba. March it in Cuba. The Trump counterplan 1, do both the counterplan with the plan fiats in action is not tied to Biden. 2, to the counterplan 3, perm to the plan and delete missiles test remainers which prevents slop 4, laundry of the black swans. With the link BBC 11.5. Anything I want to do, the low approval by Trump over the North or West Arcade. What if one of the device line will be 82, Trump is 78, or Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, which government the election factors are out of control. What if Trump goes to prison, the former president faces 91 criminal charges. 5, if Gaza will determine it, if foreign policy and being weak on adversaries is the most important. 6, Biden doesn't stop warming the Inflation Reduction Act is too small. 7, Trump doesn't cost another country slump, either slump or solve, and it's too far off. But if Trump didn't do it in his first 4 years, he won't do it in his second 4. The CDC decide. 1, fights are inevitable over budget and underperformance. Prompts Congress to try to slash the defense budget. That's Corday Capaccio. 2, the after fuses those fights. Ellsberg. 21, the confront all ACBM's Congress audit. So focus on stopping new acceptance of the minimum block. The GBSC since the budget that the ACBM isn't about implicitly reinforce the land triad. 3, no link. The Sentinel cancellation can occur passively because crossover is submitted to the default on the non-McCurdy Act for the plaintiff's popular quota. 21, Biden should review the GBSC, not continue to would be overwhelmingly supported by the public on a bipartisan basis of opposition was also reflected in 2027 deficit. So the alternative policy. 5, Biden is not sending PC. Their evidence says he supports the tax credit, but he is fighting for the full thing, not the watered-down nonsense that they're just at. Is about Parker in 116. Biden remains committed to fighting for the full CDC by when and Smith is not extended CDC implemented by Biden will pass and PC fails. Whoa, 116 the child CDC, the CDC and tax rates reach the challenging roads. Republicans in Congress labor exactly for the basic government. Several major hurdles remain. Senate reps and House Senates argued that it should do more. Smith and Biden stop tax targeting counterparts of non-endorsed Biden beyond funding lawmakers. Focus on immigration aid to Ukraine and election cycle. The chances is pretty nil. 6 PC is compartmentalized fights are changing specific policy preferences and don't spill over. 7 The impact is stupid and too far off requires people to have babies and then grow up to be productive taxpayers, and affordability is obviously not the primary barrier now, which is proven by people having kids who can't afford it. The arms control bet is at one. Modernization is broadly inevitable because the U.S. has life extension of the Minutemen post plan, and they need mobility to prevent a first strike. Two, submarines are inevitable because they're a crucial second strike weapon, which means that their status is terminally non-unique. Three, the plan causes cancellation of the other programs they have that are bad if we better thesis claim of arms control. Four, public interest is inevitable. A first strike is revisionist, and once global domination, then obviously the public will drive Russia to status symbols. Inevitably. Five, the internal a trade-off card is about the avant-garde, which is a hypersonic, which proves our inevitability. Argument 6, terrorism and rogue states are not a threat. Anyways, 22, terrorism are on the top of the list. Most threats have arisen. International terrorism is not on the rise. Police action against terrorism is much less expensive than war for years. Once state is rising out of state failure, equally misplaced. Some kind of enough war should have failed state. It was central by the most Korean government that Afghanistan had since the 1970s. The number of failed states is not increasing. 7, Russian modernization is driven by the requirement to offset strategic delivery vehicle inferiority. Over the long run, removing this pressure brings them to the arms control table. Reef and Zager 20. The U.S. maintained more weapons than any numerical advantage of not challenge assurance. The U.S. possess more delivery systems, such provides Russia an incentive to keep up with such as storm at Washington, Chicago, Moscow, an easy excuse to a bloated arsenal. A decision would reduce would put the U.S. in a stronger position. That card is marked as stronger position.
The space call card was set.
I wrote it down. So wait.
Yeah. Let me know.
11:20.
Okay, are you good for a test?
Yeah.
So to be very clear, like, the plan eventually gets rid of all ICBMs. Like, there comes a point where there are no ICBMs in the U.S. arsenal.
Yeah.
Okay.
After life extension of the Minuteman 3 is no longer technically viable.
Okay, which you think is in like 2065.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Topicality, you've defined eliminate and restriction, neither of which are in the resolution. Why is that predictable?
What?
Like, you have defined the word eliminate and restriction. The resolution says restrict and eliminating. Why are those predictable?
Because we think that they are forms of the same word which have the same definition.
Why is that true?
Well, because like the definition of running is to run. So if you define one word, you have provided a predictable definition of the other words.
Okay.
We think we have also defined contextual words about disarmament and elimination of nuclear arms, which are more predictable in the context of a news topic.
Saw evidence says the current goal of the United States is to eliminate North Korea's nuclear weapons program, and then defines elimination in that context. Why do you think that that's true of ICBMs?
I don't know why we're like nitpicking about what definition cards mean that are not about nuclear weapons, or that are about nuclear weapons, because you have read cards that are like, in this court case about like water and resource sharing,
your card, so
should is certain and immediate.
Okay, I'm just gonna move on. Then the argument that you've made on the spending counter plan and also on cases, like you keep asserting this 13 trillion number,
Yeah.
but then when I look at Reef for reference, it's just about the broader federal fiscal outlook, and then the paragraph before that is about nuclear modernization. So why do you think this evidence is about the ICBM program specifically?
Because it is.
It's about like, entitlement programs drove 89% of spending. Like, you keep saying 13 trillion.
This brief evidence is like the U.S. will add 13 trillion to the debt. It's like, you are correct that the context that is using is like the U.S. will add 13 trillion to the debt in total. The brief evidence is like the most important thing about that is military modernization programs that are over budget, and the most important thing about that is the Sentinel.
Okay, I'm just gonna grab it.
You didn't read that out, right?
No.
I stopped at 4.
I'm gonna start out so I can finish the sentence. Okay. 8:41.
Okay.
Or 8:48. Whatever.
Real quick before you go, Zaire said you maybe have Excedrin. Is that
I
true?
have just Tylenol.
Okay. Could I steal some Tylenol
Yeah, of
real quick?
course.
Sorry, and then I need 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm like getting a migraine. And
No, I'm gonna run to the restroom. Like, take your time. You're so good.
I have motion also.
no, that's okay.
I'm just gonna like open it up because it's kind of weird.
It started exactly when the 2AC started talking.
Honestly, if I'm being totally frank, it did.
Wow.
It wasn't you,
I could be
but
Why?
no. It has literally nothing to do with that. It's
Okay.
like,
You finish your homework?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, send me that now.
Actually, that's a good. Oh, well, it's on my iPad and that's recording right now. I'll
Are you guys
upload
gonna
it.
post those? Okay.
Yeah, I'll upload it to Google Drive and then.
Cool.
Because that was just an audio recording, right?
Yeah. Are you guys posting these around on YouTube? The ones that people are okay with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of busted for like. Kind of good. Is that your signature?
No.
Go trees.
It's kind of misleading because the BC is on Emory's
Oh, yeah.
side now.
You know, an actual mascot, so.
Dartmouth.
Yeah. So we have to
Trees.
search for a nature.
Trace, you didn't do it all last year, right? What was your biggest benefit of not doing it?
A grade score on the MCAT. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is that why you didn't debate?
Yeah, I had to like get all my shit together for med school. Yeah.
Are you in the process of applying already, or?
Yeah, I applied, so I'm like waiting for
You're
results.
right here, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, and also I feel like last year was a good topic to miss out.
What?
I mean, AI was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
The
To be clear, like, I didn't debate the topic, so my opinion doesn't matter on like what
Fair.
It was the nearest person.
Yeah, personally, I think that
Oh,
was
yeah,
so
no.
fun.
Wait, what is it actually? Oh, it's the legal person per topic.
I thought policy people had fun with AI. I mean, did you have fun with the grades? Did you have fun with AI?
No.
Okay, never mind.
High school topic had AI too, and I did not have fun.
I feel like AI is fun.
I mean, it's like it is a really timely topic, but it's just hard to debate about.
Like this topic more?
No, like this topic more than the last.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Our topics are always good.
Yeah.
Close.
My favorite topic was alliances.
I agree.
I enjoyed that one.
I read the burden sharing app the whole year. It was like no one thought it was T at the beginning because there's like some weird like defense pack at least part of the res, and it was like pro alliance, not negative alliance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tricky. I think we read that one against Kate.
Great burden sharing against K teams. Oh, because you went for like
We
pitch
said,
good.
like, yeah, we said.
Dude, I don't know, like withdraw from NATO, like NATO bad is very good. Okay.
Did you like it? Arm sales? Yeah.
I love arms stuff.
That was my favorite.
Yeah.
My first topic ever.
Then you had criminal justice after that? Or 2 years later?
CJR.
Yeah, it was CJR and then water and then all of which were terrible. So.
Yeah.
It could have been good. It was just afterwards.
Yeah, I wonder how the high school was IP law. That would be kind of interesting.
It was almost Nukes,
I
right?
know, I kind of wish it was for like selfish reasons, but it's good for them that it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, on the water topic, it was just nukes.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Are you all good if I locally record this? Cause
Yeah.
so one thing that happens for me is I get like aphasia and like weird like vision spots, which makes flowing a little weird. Don't worry, it's all good. And I just don't want to miss anything. So are you all okay if I record it to listen a little bit more later too? Okay, cool. And then I'm good. Let's just keep going.
If you ever need me to like stop, just like
No, it's not. It's not going to be like an emergency or anything. It's just like if I'm being totally transparent, like it's going to be a little bit harder for me to like process information in like the next 20, 30 minutes
Yeah.
and maybe after. So if there's like a universal thing, it would just be like
really idiot-proof this for me.
Sure.
But yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna be fine. It's totally all good. It is what it is. Like, I get migraines sometimes. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
Is there anything else we can do to like?
No. It's totally okay.
Alright.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let me grab my mouse. Okay, I'm set.
Yeah, it's gonna be the Russia DA advantage 1, advantage 2.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Okay, everyone else good?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Ghost ring vulnerabilities cause extinction through unchecked terror that escalates instantly. It cements unauthorized nuclear explosions, which sets off your chain of catastrophes. That's one to see ruffling and rumbling. Extinction part 2 requires over levity. It's also taking a possibility that unauthorized nuclear explosions of nuclear terrorists will on chain of catastrophes there, which will be no return turns advantage 1 because it means that Russia will not come to the table insofar as drawing down their arms control by, or drawing down their arms racing by any means, and it fails any sort of successful arms control effort. Second is it kills conventional deterrence because it means that Russia will modernize new weapons that are specifically meant towards to circumvent the effectiveness of the U.S.'s conventional deterrence, which makes their impacts inevitable. The first argument is modernization is inevitable. This is not true. They must beat the link to win this argument, but this argument zeroes case because it means they cannot bring Russia to the negotiation table. Will Kitch kills advantage 1. The next argument is other programs cancellation. No, funding gets repurposed to the Bargusan and Rubens. I want to see warrant evidence says that that's where funding was diverted from to fund submarine projects currently, as well as other projects that Russia is modernizing currently in response to U.S.'s first strike posture, which means that they're at the top of the military planners list for program revival 1 type budget sports top prioritization. That's warrant and 23 budget. Because we're deploying every supporting the projects and for this is Russian government has made this right to several Putin is status civil second. Putin is beholden to the military. They prioritize land-based capabilities like Bargusan over all others. 1 in 22 Russia. Military lists of weapon procurement among different other historical experience, fast prioritization, land-based capabilities over air and CCBs. Nuclear weapons have never been placed on the land-based nuclear weapons. In Russian doctrine, third, fiscal constraints were the only obstacle. The designers are ready to go, and revival could carry future nukes. 1 in 22 Bargusan. Ukrainian available ICBM fiscal country for the deployment of MIT general designers ready to show the government disorder the program Bargusan will be rapid. Significant carry future nukes. Bargusan will be a potential carry for header. 4 is inter-service rivalries locking the ship. 123 years some sort of around procurement NASA. More for the first new operator to have a single nuclear program. And air Rubens deployment independently collapses NATO unity and locks in arms racing federal 50 the Rubens are essential to the European security American countermeasures. Fall into 3 categories: active defense, counter capabilities, some capabilities, going to launch against missiles. B1 option is what must go to Rubens and but with the must capability blackmail of European states undermine the unity and deal and allies of the troops must want to put it in a good position. Either defend bodies or refrain from undermining the reason. The after NATO collapse could realize pro-live global war acts 18 Europe. Thousands of the NBT and Russia required in order to Russia the repeated disintegration lead to countries all over the world pursuing new thought of NATO would prompt Germany and other nuclear capability. Arsenals European nuclear capabilities negotiations ability Brazil which also Putin to launch nuclear sites in a war. The wider year, the shift does happen to the Bargusan. Funding gets repurposed to Bargusan and the Regas. The one is warrant evidence is that is where funding was diverted from, and the list of program revivals indicates this. The next argument is eliminating first strike fears results in sub-cancellation. Public pressure is not inevitable. The threat of first use ensures that Putin can justify these weapons that are nevertheless unpopular. The plan removes that which lets public pressure, even if inevitable, overcome justification that currently exists to fund systems that are much more interested in first. Removes the purpose behind modernization. Putin's future submarines comes out of a need to convince the public that Russia is secure against the potential first strike from the United States. Redundant expenditures like submarines are broadly unpopular, conveying the image of maritime superiority only matters if the threat exists. Otherwise, public opposition outweighs as one as he sees Putin's spending subs as a win against the hostile U.S. crony. That all twine comes foreign policy decision happens when the Russian populace by building exciting nuclear capabilities on the economy of the hostile U.S. nuclear popular after all police, and as well as the capable of wasting resources on nuclear overall capabilities on the high criticism, and such criticism could increase. That matters. Counterforce fears catalyze domestic audience to prioritize certain nuclear systems. That's one. Majority of the interest leaders, moving the defense of the organization of the nuclear system, the actions of advocate for systems they believe that achieve the goal. This includes international size domestic actors influence the nuclear model counterforce capabilities are to leaders building more against and as a domestic level programs can be developed. The council was government prioritizing the cancellation of other programs. It is particularly true of current boarding class SSBNs that Putin is showing off 1 in 22 and domestic mechanisms to combat the on the multiple SSBN and SLBM second factor are the major drivers of the multiple guarantee. The second, strike, bore rate, and bow rate, AI, improving account for information capability for as a result for survival, second strike prioritization of these systems will up to have delayed or cancel the result of sea-based forces for deterrence, specifically that trade out with systems like Bargusan 123 Russia, development of nuclear weapons, making the effectiveness of nuclear systems in the face of account for capabilities. Russian development is interested in the future of the West and they're overcoming existing U.S. capabilities. Domestic factors play a role in the prioritization of non-nuclear capabilities at the expense of Bargusan. And Rubens, second, his status is key. The lack of a seat at the table for Putin locks in sub-modernization because Putin can convince military leaders and the public that the West is against him. The plan accommodates Russia by removing the stickler military relations, which short circuits Putin's rallying effect, freeing up funding for unpopular directives like sub-modernization. That's one to see war and first use cuts back against Russia's SOA. The plan removes accede to those concerns. Bone and 22 Ukraine. People that have been to reconstitute Russian Empire to be history of Russian to rise loss of power. This is for the liberal. The philosophy of the alternative of Russian SOA. The American nuclear deterrent will form the backbone of US between the US and NATO. But to use the earlier in the conflict status is the sole geopolitical motivation behind doubling down on subsequent and all 20. Companies can lose the new political. Actually, the most important motivation of President Obama is nuclear arsenal and national defense. The symbols of time and the weakness of the NPR public. As the most motivated to counter NPR Russia may have double hold on. Third, history proves the link. 1 and 23 design. No word of the extension for 7 and confidential repurpose of information. Russian experience, relational allegiance, proceedings with increasing local abuse, force distribution, bringing the difference of Russia as an SNP. And the next argument is that our card is about avant-garde, not true. Our evidence about submarine modernization primarily being directed against the threat of the U.S. first strike. It is also honestly irrelevant which weapon the plan results in the cancellation of, whether it's Sarmat, subs, avant-garde, or the combination of all three. All we need to win is that the plan results in those funds being redirected towards the Barcus, and which is bad. Now, terror defense is not true. Doesn't assume the group's motives, capabilities, and vulnerabilities in Russia, and like anything else that's our 10 and 22 ethnic, alternatively including English, OCD, and construction, and charter of the facilities and salvage conduct and insider have more followers in Russia regarding the science and technical expertise to develop WMDC even among employees of the Khrushchev Institute. The Russian modernization argument, they've just read another link for us. The plan removes certain weapons, which frees up resources to be dedicated to other resources. They have read card 0 that the plan also cuts down the Barguzin arms control. All can see that there's no Al-Qaras, which proves the link to the disad, but broadly arms control will fail. 1 appears INF, CDC, CWC, all prove that Russia and China have a history of treaty violations and say no nuclear powers are integral. Nuclear powers integral to regime legitimacy and possession of strategic values for autocrats that are unwilling to give up that the Williams evidence. They will never come to the table. Second is cooperative security measures are politically impossible for both sides. Perkovich and for doing security for cooperative security measures. The U.S. and the more probable political pressure structure almost all Republican senators who have done any treaty with Russia and North Korea or not agree to potential to which opportunities to reinforce the that is no point in negotiating and no diplomatic capital. There's no chest on power and no alternative perspective. Has involved where the issues are more risk averse. There's no indication that they're underlying the pursuit of other countries worried that they lose power if policy and show about clearance of the U.S. and a loss for the other side. 4 unilateral reductions fail incentives of the right other countries to build up their arsenal to outpace the U.S. Global reductions are the only possible with the strengthening the U.S. posture, not the other way around. That's criteria. Now, impact defense, they've dropped there's no U.S.-Russia war. The Sarmat wars are just not true. Both sides want to avoid escalation. The UK means Russia cannot risk another war. That's Rogan. And DNA read 23 U.S. and Russian militaries have for decades been very careful about doing Russian military secretly. It should be always the U.S. will receive the proportion not necessarily uncertainty about escalation looks like the U.S. and Russia care to avoid combat. Russia understood that there are 2 vulnerable Russian leaders that would see a major conflict in the north. Individuals cannot retake the offensive in 2022. Their impact starts at 0.38%. Rodriguez and I get a sense of how critical and nuclear war may be look at his role as the U.S. when the release may be forecast to aggregate the source of the interest of nuclear war between the U.S. and Russia are around 0.38%. ICBMs are not destabilizing to Peninsula and 2020 misconceptions ICBM and nearly destabilizing to ICBM accidental launch no neutralizing would program massive unambiguous nuclear strike overlapping multi-domain essential value indication of launch allows unique confirmation for entity significant as we launch can only occur after liberating discipline and corporate actions are undertaken ahead to go intentionally attempting to frighten. There's no prolif now Miller and 20 so how difficult it is for not consistent here only you can have the doctor without having that attack there also seems to be we better off without the bond the launch can pursue they will whatever but about large so it has been given the interest of NPT sanctions for use all of which for this the artificial solar lace and program that has ever been almost every state is mode there's no sense of currently seeking nuclear weapons around there's no evidence that has made the decision to build a bomb procurement. ICBMs are affordable. Annual savings costs would be less than 1%, and operating costs would be noticeably reduced because crews are barely on site and it's much cheaper than a new cell bomber. And the other lists in the trial far outpace current modernization. For example, our coding evidence indicates annual operating costs of each like are estimated at $1.4 billion for ICBM, $1.8 billion for bombers, and $3.8 billion for SLBM, which he said. And the ICBM cut is a drop in the bucket, and it's phased out, which means that the time frame for the asset advantage is the time frame for the asset advantage is so far in the future. But you know that the disad is far faster in Turin's case. Now, sheer numbers create the promise of catastrophic destruction. That's all 1 and 22 numbers. When it comes to Russian nuclear arsenal, has been a long way to the ICBM arsenal really much older. Modernized of numbers of capabilities that are bold and sector that heroes getting rented operable and the remaining to ensure counterplaying massive besides the individual offices kind of catastrophic Russian somebody should certainty research subject numbers ICBM will be critical for US nuclear deterrence, but there's no accidents, arguments, airmen must decode the message, authenticate the source, target the missile, unlock it, and many other checks that make auto launch false use or elusive pressures are wrong because it assumes leaders somehow have an incentive to choose the worst possible option and empirically disproven theory that's the one to see yellow evidence you should error negative over 70 years of textability disproven and new GPS and satellite systems make it even more ineffective, but there's no miscount impact and so wrong and so is great power war 1 there's no risk of it 1 see practice demonstrates that there are 0 empirical cases of conflict by chance or accidents, all being by leaders' choice and incomplete or mistaken warnings do not cause nuclear launch. That's especially true for Russia because our evidence indicates that they do not succumb to use or elusive pressures and practice high NC3 centralization wars or started by choice, not accident rates. And 20 war was not by accident. And there's the argument that these conflict war that's no more these wars by actual conflict with the SES and hard to identify wars like about even though nobody wanted to produce the powers. It's the irresponsible to new school that's what the audience that kind of shit that war where there's no fundamentals of the nation of war country really want to virtue and they will tackle the chiefs of embarrassment there was neighbors as in the war. Seems unlikely to be used to drive policy there or can be well we only know essentially to avoid when conflict occurs when a partner that the war is preferable to the status quo. There's no cyber attacks. ICBMs are hardwired chronic at all. 21 ICBMs are having technological main criticism studying the accident as ICBMs with ICBM with all the undetectable secrets. You can get under something more for technology coming over world ICBM for ICBM communication will hardware deep underground repair. Protected there's no catastrophic cyber attacks. Lewis and 20 catastrophic cyber attacks remain imaginary catastrophe. Most were doing it causing chaos like castle cheese catastrophe requires technical skills and actual processes. Authority and my control for the US and ability to be done with the special population there. Emphasis is on the course in the US of have no interest in a catastrophic cyber attack. We can reduce catastrophic and better escalation have a social conflict with weapon. Secrets out of what escalation declares just the robustness of modern economy, outages, cybersecurity, and people clearly rebuild after 25 years. Why raise it so often? Why is that credit raised so often?
Okay. Are you good?
Yes. How much time am I sending this thing?
Good question. 8:43.
Honestly, you just said it. I'm not. Yeah.
Okay. Link number 1 is modernization is because Putin fears a US first strike, and the plan makes him not want a second strike capability anymore. Why then does he need the ghost trade or nukes at all?
Our argument is that there is current public pressure for the ghost trade. There are people in the public, there are people in the military that have access to Putin that want the US or that want Russia to adopt the ghost trade
Why?
now. Well, I've read a couple different cards for why. One, there's
What do they
types.
say?
What?
What do they say?
So our cards indicate that Putin is one, beholden to the military who,
Yep.
quote, prioritization of land-based capabilities over air or sea capabilities.
Yes.
Second is that there are fiscal constraints that say that the current modernization projects that Russia is developing have shifted away from the Borgusin and the Rubez.
Yeah, I got
Those are
that.
2 warrants for why.
If
that
the
answers
West
question.
is no longer a threat and Russia does not need a second strike deterrent, why does the military want nukes at all?
Well, obviously the plan does not result in denuclearizing Russia, and the U.S. is not the
You
only
said
threat.
they don't need a second strike anymore because they don't fear
Yes, they
threat from
don't
the West.
need weapons that are particularly developed in response to the U.S.'s first strike. That does not mean that the public just automatically wants to stop developing novel
What
nuclear
country
weapons.
has
These are evidence.
ever not needed a secure second strike capability but wanted offensive nuclear weapons?
Our argument is that there's public pressure because Russia particularly cares about their status, which is the second link that I read, on the international stage, and says that novel nuclear weapons, things that other countries do not have whatsoever, are able to project that image globally.
Okay. And the plan removes the justification, which stops Russian modernization, which causes it in other areas.
Yes.
Okay. So the link is that the plan causes Russia to stop their current modernization.
It's just like the issue with like everything that you've
Just-
read
this
is that
is
the
just a yes or no
1AC,
question.
the 1AC has read a scenario that says that the
Yeah,
plan
yeah.
stops in certain forms of Russian
Right.
modernization.
So-
Even if it's not, let's just hear me out for like 20 seconds. Even if it's not sub-modernization.
We don't have a lot of money on.
Well,
This
we've
is
read
just a
cards
yes or
that
no
say that
question.
cutting
The
down the
link-
Sarmat gets transferred into the Bargusin.
The link is that the plan causes Russia to draw down their current modernization. Yes.
Yes.
642. Bennett started the Texas-Michigan chain with the one another. Or like out of the round robin group. Thanks, buddy. Just Bennett, like clearly Texas didn't put the round robin group on their round 4 chain. Round whatever this is.
Right. The doc's consent.
You know what the app is? It's legs. Disability legs. Tribe.
Uh-huh.
Everyone's good for an order.
Mhm.
It's the MQD counterplan, the politics decide, the Trump or the Republican elections counterplan, the advantage counterplan, topicality, and then first strike Saturn.
Sorry, just check. MQD politics, Trump, advantage counterplan, T, nuke the planets.
Yes. Everybody good?
Yes.
Dartmouth?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Concede the permanence of test competition. Concede that immediacy is key. The F is gradual, not immediate, so they can solve the case for the truth. The argument the F does not access the impact, not guard the case. Even takes about does not enable political stability. Politics is arguments prove that politics is a disaster and fights aren't just about modernization. Politics is sad. Concede there's no impacts in fights. No spillover, they have no offense, but no spillover. And proving that fights are compartmentalized prove that fights for modernization don't enable broader foreign policy or political instability. The Trump counterplan concede the permanence of test competition. Concede internally deep. And the advantage counterplan solves advantage 2 of fully funded programs. Their evidence does need to be funded to come from new taxes, which don't contribute to the debt crisis from the U.S. doesn't solve first strike good. Eliminates ICBMs does not link to first strike Saturn because it maintains ICBMs. There's no impact to the debt spent in year 21. The U.S. debt is far ahead of other markets. Most of the outliers from estimated leaders position in hand for the privilege out of the dollar's crazy. Significant level of denominated treasury markets rejoice. Safe havens have response to the that there may be innovation making the debt here more manageable monetary policy can to change conditions that to make the global debt more tenable traditional debt doubles none sustainable. The spending fights argument the F is not solve it because of broader polarization. Inflation does not matter. It's not about uncapped just random spending, but the counterplan can come from taxation permutation both with answered above. The Lebo evidence is not in the context of the counterplan. It's about Republicans in the status quo trying to start civilian services and says that inexpensive military is bad bad. The act does not solve expansive military, and there's no terminal impact to interventions. Topicality, our interpretation is the act must immediately eliminate the ICBM's leg, should require immediacy and restriction must be immediate. That settler and Supreme Court of India prefer it, limits and ground away overwhelms the topic, making neg prep untenable, unright standards which are necessary, and intrinsic good for debate, incentives for research on both the act and neg, rely on teams having the expectation there's an equal chance that they can win the debate, makes ground impossible. They allow the act to cite the press often destroying clash, which is the only meaningful way to access any portable skill. Immediacy is key to first strike good, politics, deterrence, and insurance, which rely on sudden shocks resist and eliminate requires complete removal. Intent term elimination eliminates subject to only reasonable interpretation, complete elimination, or eliminate complete removals of the break complete is unnecessary, but the evidence demonstrated that the product only alleviate the condition of period of time, and arbitrary would probably be false according to defense, where eliminate several meanings in court design, create and eliminates modified by should and restrict, which our evidence says must be certain and immediate. The affirmation argument, when no link app teams can read and a few sets under a model, they just have to defend them immediately. It's better to innovate in those areas, and innovation does not rely on being able to delay the app. Second, neg outweighs Outkids first and last speech cards are amazing on this topic. No bad counterplans, one delay counterplans are good. App should be prohibited in certain communities. Anything else you have to arbitrarily low link offense too. It's not offense. The alternative is every bad counterplan they describe becomes top app, which is worse. App get to monopolize prep and get solvent stance. It's about the credibility card. Declaratory policy, whereas the neg is out of the water. Third theory solves it. The right to bad counterplans break to the outset scope of word definitions. They should be able to be on theory. Real world is not a terminal impact and limits turn it. The clash like healthcare. The new topic has ample room for vertical innovation to sustain a year's worth of debates. It is not real world. We can immediately remove ICBMs and not wait for particular programs to be phased out. Predictability. One reason to prefer proof predictability for definitions or desirable debates. Practice of competing interrupts makes it predictable. It's the same way course laid on definitions and justices make decisions to negate turns to their interpretation creates unpredictable debates without unifying the prep limits determine what is predictable in practice, and that they don't solve limits or ground. If we can say ICBMs are good, then that zeros are only argument on first strike Saturn, which we see with super shifty reasonability. They're not that with limits and ground offense anywhere under articulation means arbitrary judgment should go off what you should personally think is okay. Green light then run of Houston doesn't solve limits. You should be unreasonably biased early on in the season. The Dartmouth are now better that more app teams lose on T before the NBT. The first strike Saturn counterplay. The counterplay takes the ICBMs, the app eliminates and uses them to turn Jupiter and Saturn into suns, which is vital space colonization that outweighs otherwise humanities living on borrowed times. There's no impact defense in the 2AC. The risk of catastrophic existential risk on Earth over time approaches 100%, and there's literally thousands of potential triggers for an event that would end civilization, including an inevitable collision with an Neuron star getting sucked into a black hole or getting hit with an asteroid. That circuit which only impacts existential Martin 82 a major nuclear war directly killed 450 million people. So at extinction there would remain alive 9/10 of the world's population. Was not unaffected areas would be relatively unscathed. Scientific evidence proves no basis. Statements nuclear war leads to death of all should be considered exaggerations. 2AC1, the perm do both is incoherent. The plane gets rid of ICBMs. The plane uses ICBMs. They are clearly and obviously mutually exclusive per the own 2ACT argument on solving limits of ground. The sequencing argument is severance. It's a voter. It makes the moving target and leads to ground. 2AC2, we agree, does not solve the case, but it solves your impacts because extinctions and levels would start hyperspace colonization. 2AC3, nuking planets is good in this case. Only we have evidence. The counterplane uses nuclear detonation to begin the sulfication of Jupiter and Saturn and employs a process called the Bosch reaction, which uses a thermonuclear trigger to elevate the temperatures of Jupiter and Saturn enough to create a self-fulfilling chain reaction that turns them into a protostar, adding an external source of heat nearby Mars makes life on the planet viable with a few decades. That would give it a thick atmosphere, Earth-like temperature, and hydrosphere capable of supporting microorganisms. It removes the biggest barrier to Mars colonization. Our evidence is a probe carrying 10 warheads would be enough. We've launched spacecraft around Jupiter before, so it's easy within technical feasibility to get a few warheads to the planet. The counterplane is a legitimate scientific proposal. 2AC4, the counterplane solves that was above. Only ICBM can get the job done. It'll be on 16. ICBMs are important because it's similar to delivery vehicles or the overrun of pre-arrived Earth's orbital eventually use atomic devices and space unites significantly to ICBMs as a former officer of the US military who worked in missiles arrived, not successfully tested space for the nuclear thermal rocket detonation. We can move all initial small pieces of equipment in the Earth into orbit. 2AC5, colony not possible now is our argument. The counterplane enables it. Mars is the next logical step, but the counterplane's key cover in 15. Exploration likely remains similar to be seen presently. The formation exploration will take its highly non-clear the ambiguous life and the future of human exploration estimates Mars the next logical step. Regardless of new incentives to push the boundaries of human exploration, the American space program will likely go for nothing less has made go to Mars attractive. The key barriers technological camp and 18 will investigate historical reason public support and opinion played especially important with major argument against colonization and not against colonization, but against prioritizing over current problems. Therefore, we find it unlikely that colonizing will gain significant public support right now. With that colonization will likely awake stronger opinions as the technology improves. Let's mention colonization a reality. Conditionality is good against new asks when logic transclass to only roll the negatives through the 1AC to screen. The counterplane does not prove the plan is good. Their contradiction kills education and predictably 2 neg flux and neg is reactive, which proves that we turn argument innovation only found it overcomes the research and prep deficit. It's too easy being outside. Bias fake plans over and case explanation means they can leverage 20 insurance and name flow speaking versus last solve screen role of policy makers. Plus defend their arguments and often right there's no effective contradictions or even if statements strategic incentive interference between all solves for not a better when error when made it impossible. Anything else trades off a substance if they were reasonability applies here. They didn't disclose that kills clash pre-round prep and leads to bad ass projected team 5 strats season level with just 7 T 6 disreliefs are often doesn't solve teams and planes of force firms in 2 and 3 clear bias condo space calls key to avert resource wars disease super volcanoes and asteroids called in 2 and 10 terrestrial settlements reducing the introducing to accents to the war pollution zero volcanoes asteroid impacts everything at danger. This is more important bring dangers of pollution and resource wars running out of use survival resources may have never and if humans make the necessary effort to develop vehicles space travel then resource wars will be evaporated. Resource wars cause extinction would version 9 air resource wars consequences like be increased unrest proliferation finding inequality and nuclear war ending civilization and disease cause extinction given all 21 evidence certain human life we present relation experiments or disease can affect knowledge of social networks leaving the things market small box stars and evolution large population which could increase in mobility threaten humankind. Super volcanoes cause extinction seed in 17 Yellowstone super volcanoes finish why humans would erupt to all the volcano scientists constantly watching.
Okay, 6:42. I got new F's bad. Any other shenanigans?
Grace.
Yeah. Sorry, can you pause? My word is doing this really weird thing where it inverts all of my. Yeah, I just need to like.
Pause the 2.9.
Okay, yeah.
Resume.
Okay, it's set.
Yeah.
No, don't. Advantage 1. Advantage 2. The advantage counter plan. The first strike counter plan. Arms control decide. Or the Russia decide.
Sorry, to confirm. Arms control, QNet, advantage counter plan, nuke Jupiter, Russia, T.
Yep.
Like Saturn, actually.
Sorry, Saturn and Jupiter.
Actually, no, this game was stupid. I put T on top.
Okay.
203.
Okay, so advantage 1, advantage 2, T, the
Rest of
advantage
it.
counter plan, or, yeah, the first strike counter plan, the Russia decide. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Alright, I'm good.
Yeah? Okay, everyone good?
I don't know. Okay, now I do.
Concede arms control fails. Russia defects from history of treaties and quote saying no means they don't cancel modernization and in fact quote unilateral reductions fail incentivizes other countries to build up their arsenals to outpace the US. That means the plan causes Russia to continue building up their nukes. They have read contradictory arguments that Russia both does and does not respond to the plan with arms control. If you don't get to concede, well then what are we doing here? It takes out the design page which is based on Russia mod but does not implicate the other page which is solely about domestic spending. Now I will answer the real Russian war defense in case they cross the line to the conventional deterrence impact. US Russian war is true. This argument does not assume accidents there. 0.38% statistic is pre-Starman increased risk of accidents and yes, destabilization ICBM is organizational incoherent which will be on the second advantage. Advantage 2, they dropped 2 impacts 1 weekend conventional deterrence causes a great power war, lackluster Air Force, green lights are total fighting complex by Russia and China because they know the military is much used in that step to let in emerging risk cause extinction and for warfare, weapons, military, AI, cyber attacks, ensure that we need spending to invest in societal resilience. Other legs are costly, but those are current systems that we are already spending money in. The GBSD requires $13 trillion more and at least $113 billion for up to 2040, which is extremely costly. Time frame, no time frame argument because we immediately cancel the GBSD, which saves money even if it takes a long time to phase out. ICBM numbers are not key to deterrence, but regardless, it does not matter if ICBMs are key because they are being phased out, but conventional deterrence is specifically key to deter Chinese and Russian lackluster Air Force. Yes, miscalculation or impact. Yes, accidents are impact. It's about a systemic failure, not malfunctions high. Interactive composite means airtight coordination is necessary. Any error cascades across the chain of command to the links it's about adversary sentinel spikes to risk because the signals are doubling down, launch a warning, and it's more computerized for Ukraine's need to ensure not extension communications where there are no miscalc. This stuff is about how war is about war, not ICBMs, which has a decision time of minutes. War has decision times of days, which means it doesn't apply now.
Their deterrence turn is high level, not low level.
Yeah, the deterrence turn is high level, not low level. Our argument is about ICBMs being accidentally launched. Yes, and the creating governance. And the cyber defense is not assumed sentinel, and the Lewis defense is not about cyber NC3 infrastructure. The T topicality flow. Elimination can be phased down to zero. Evidence is a core evaluating dictionary definitions and deciding they're predictable and include gradual limits. All limits are ground. We still have to go to zero so they can say zero bad and pick out of the goal, but the innovation is innovation about the steps to get to zero is functionally still one app. Eliminate, modifies, restrict, and should not vice versa. So if we win this definition, it filters out the rest of the plan. Fields and immediate answer restriction which design gradually gets rid of these. We meet their elimination definition because we do get rid of estimates. They do not have a coherent reading of the resolution or counter means we meet their entry. The only evidence they write is that eliminate is completely agree, but that can occur through a process. They have not met the burden. It's what advocates mean by the term lowering cleanness single period. Whereas how we would phase out this answer was our same kind of eliminate things that happen overnight would phase out over years can be gradual. It can be gradual or instantaneous. LCF 53 discussion was based on elimination, instant or gradual. They say the delay counterpoints good, the bad counterpoints argument was not about delay. It is about how you just read counterpoints that say we should eliminate but slower. We solve ground, just have losses, reciprocal, those are the links there. So their advantages, we cut the sentinel now so they get immediate perception links and still go to zero so they get ICBM good. They can read a pig out of the end goal and still say the phase out is the bad. Now it forces next to research the effects of the weapon and why do we want to achieve them instead of leaning on vacuous platitudes about cred theory. They're really just asking for eliminate slowly plus politics, which cries out real world that comes first that always limits the stage research limit debate. So but if no one knows the debates we're going to be having committee consensus to judge determine credibility is arbitrary and circular. The expectation for immediate fiat is a debate fantasy which zero real world authors advocate actual fundamental that takes time. Post-Soviet Russians took 20 years. That's calling HCNC when the US has eliminated about 4 next we mean freeze and face on that's the Wolfsoul evidence. That's the Wolfsoul evidence now. It's unreasonable to know after talk is balanced the functional debate and the death penalty. The debate death penalty is arbitrary, capricious, and just forward punishment for teams that mean a globally fair interpretation, even if it's not the most limited. You can always find a narrow interpretation, so teams move the goalposts. It's not arbitrary, it's different administrable test. The advantage counterpoint for me. The should and restrict both mean uncertainty media. There were no definitions read, and the one and are on these words. Now the advantage counterpoint permutation do both. Most definitely solves the first counterpoint, which we know later, but does not solve the second advantage. ISBN spirals with 13 trillion means they literally draw 13 trillion tax civilians domestically, which weakens societal resilience. They drop low evidence, which says there's an impact to that. Their impact is just about not causing economic crisis, but they drop the link to deterrence, conventional deterrence, and strategic cacophony, which leads to what's our impacts, yes, fights, because and the solves it because it cancels the GBC, so they can't depend on lobbying over. Also does not solve accidents because they still invest in GBC. First strike counterpoint permutation do both is intuitive. They immediately launch current minimum. The plan cancels GBSD, which is a modernized form of it that they are currently developing. That the plan phases out. The plan clearly fiat's phasing out of minimum, which immediately cancels the GBC and results in long-term eliminating the ICBM leg that proves that their instant launch of Minuteman is not incompatible with no sequencing voter that was answered on T. Do not offer the evaluated via offense defense. This is just true that the permutation, the affirmative does not affect current life or does not eliminate current Minuteman. So a single launch does not mean exclusive and they're not altering the counterpoint text. They clearly realized was incoherent and cross-text. Now the arms control. Nuance are not bad when it's app innovation because it's first critical thinking app innovation finish revision 2 critical thinking only that suffers quotes from their debaters and factories cross-text and the small topic checks. Now the arms control decide there's no impact to nuclear acquisition. It's impossible. It takes a long time. It's insane assistance in nuclear response. Even if they get the nukes, they won't just explode them arbitrarily. So there's no time for it. They have to wait for Putin to develop the nuclear train and then for terrorists to intervene, which is like it's super improbable. It does not turn advantage 1. Does not, or we didn't go for that, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't turn advantage 2 because the ghost train doesn't implicate conventional deterrence and air defense against both China and Russian modernization. Now both China and Russia now submarines are inevitable. Russia wants to check out our submarines, which 2021 Toyota says are sufficient to make Russia fear the new Lars Our evidence is a horse trade. The plan makes it essential for Sarmat. Their ICBMs are ours. This makes sense because their ICBMs are pointed at ours and vice versa. So if we reduce our ICBMs, it reduces the number of targets they need to hit. That's for convention Hank 2. Their evidence confirms that they have to go for. The plan makes Russia not want second strike anymore because when the evidence is about second strike capacity, of course, all countries want secure second strike 3. Double point. If the plan makes Russia no longer need secure second strike, then obviously we would not need to develop the ghost train because they wouldn't need to. That was cross-text for Minuteman. Obviously solves the plan. Life extends a first strike capability in the long term, at least until 2065, which ensures that this is long term, is at least short term. Now, go back to T, and a few subsets and disarm subsets are more squirrely, so they don't solve limits, and we do because we require getting to 0, which is an enormous policy proposal, and we can always pick out of the goal, which is terminal defense.
going to be first strike counterplay, topicality, the advantage counterplay, the Russia DA, advantage 1 arms control, and then advantage 2 arms control.
Sorry. Oh, I labeled this roids. I guess it's planets. Planets, T, advantage kind of plane, Marcia, just add 1, 2?
Yep.
Okay.
Everyone good? Cool. Space law always on scoping is the biggest impact in this debate. There are infinite possible and probable scenarios for planetary extinction that one sees scoping sites like collisions with a neutron star, asteroids, or getting sucked into a black hole. 4 impacts. 1 is resource wars. They do not stay localized and are increasing in probability, diversionary leaders turn to war, global escalation in response to domestic unrest, which results in a nuclear war. That's Woodward. 2nd is disease, cause extinction, biggest pathogens, mutations such as virulence, doesn't trade alpha transmissibility, the black death, smallpox, SARS, and Ebola are just the beginning of waves of diseases that threaten the entire humanity. Supervolcanoes also cause extinction of the sheet. Evidence says that, for example, Yellowstone with supervolcano has the potential to wipe out the entire humanity when it's erupt, and it's coming now, which means the destroyer dive for the counterplanet asteroids also independently cause extinction of the bomb. Evidence says it causes things like global firestorms, ozone layer damage, radiation, and turning the world into dead declines in vegetation, which would result in ultimately human extinction that outweighs on sheer scope, which must come first in your decision-making calculus because it wipes out infinite future lives. Twin C. Martin says that a major nuclear global war, even if it were to include all arsenals, will be far from extinction because around 400 million people will survive in the remote portions of South America and Australia that can still sustain civilization. Only our cataclysmic evidence logs in extinction shows that we win the counterplay, we win the debate simply on scope. Permutation through vote does not make any sense. The plan is clearly a form of phase out, immediately phases out the JBS Saints and launch is not incompatible. This argument is just not wrong. The plan gets rid of ICBMs and the counterplan uses ICBMs. They are clearly and obviously mutually exclusive. The sequencing argument is pretty much separate, so you should vote in. If it's a voter that makes the half a moving target and always negative ground, that's the only thing that they have said on this, which means that if we win topicality, then we win the debate. Topicality. Top class must defend immediate elimination of ICBMs, allowing Dartmouth to defend the plan happening in 50 years is a terrible for debate. You rarely hear the teams losing to do the F in a week, but letting F be gradually zeros all core negative ground offense on this topic limits the ground outweigh all F standards because they are a precondition for negative research and preparation. The F slaughters the egg when they get delayed. The F gets to pick any future day which the plan occurs, which zeros the link to this. Yamar decide politics is that ICBMs good deterrence and assurance, which rely on sudden shocks. Our topic is strong for the F. You get NFU and disarm subsets, which provides dozens of potential Fs. The layer asserts that they are squirrely, but does not provide a warrant for why that is the case. Should and restrict both mean immediate. Since elimination means that they must be eliminated immediately, they do not meet our interpretation. They said that the plan happens in 2065 should modifies the rest of the resolution, which means that the F must be immediate. They cannot go for bad counterplanes office when they drop the bad counterplanes. Lose to theory. It is a natural check on do the F in a week, but the policies that benefit no new to our answers. We also term this. It is good for Fs to have defenses of immediate and certain action that shouldn't be difficult on a perception-based topic. They don't solve ground. The 1 AR drop that we should be able to say using ICBMs now is good against an ICBM's bad act. It zeros the core controversy of the resolution. This proves that we cannot research weapons effects. There's no predictability. Offense 1 is ground outweighs predictability. It overwhelms the topic, makes negative preparation. Untenable incentives for research on both the YAF and the neg rely on teams having the expedition. There's an equal chance they win the debate. Second is there's no link to this. Dartmouth has read a couple people say that ICBMs can't be deleted overnight. Our evidence assumes that when there is any contextual definition, you should use the limited definition of words like should they delete T because it will never be a crime to say that fiat is predictable. They are not predictable. They are not predictable. Third is reasons to prefer proof predictability for definition is desirable. Debate practice of competing interpretation makes it predictable. It is the same way courts pick definitions and justices make decisions that fit it even if imperfectly it's dropped by the 1 AR 4. Is their definition creates unpredictable debates even if it is reflective of real world offense proves that there would be no unified negative round or preparation. This means that limits determines what can and cannot be predictable in practice. Second or fifth is predictability is a sliding scale, which means that if we win our definition is sufficiently predictable, a risk of a link to limits that way you will concede that both definitions are somewhat precise and that limits has to be a tiebreaker. Broadly, it is good for us to sacrifice the real world nature of debate to some extent when it's key to preserving the activity. Even if fiat isn't the most real world, it sustains debates for both the F and the negative teams. So respond to the ICBM F with it's impractical for you to eliminate immediately. But with ICBMs are good and bad, which gets closer to the real debates that are happening outside of this activity. The 1 AR draws that sort of community consensus is what determines what is and is not predictable in practice, which means that it has to outweigh. Now, reasonability is bad. One, the sum of all reasonable in terms of slope limits beyond reason, they are not reasonable. Second, it forces such intervention, which kills debate. There is no bright line for what is reasonable. Third is no link to goalpost shifting. Incredibly unpredictable or imprecise definitions still lose. Four is crowd is wrong. T is substance. Debates about the definition of resolution words are crucial to topic knowledge. Broadly, you should just be super suspect of voting affirmative in this debate when we have reason for why ICBMs are good and the affirmative is ICBMs bad. Voting F does not make any sense in this contest. Now, the advantage counterplay. Counterplane solves the components of advantage 2 based on conventional deterrence and the need to shift their funding away from the ICBM. So $15 trillion can come from taxing the rich and fully funds the programs that their evidence does need to be funded. Can come from new taxes which do not contribute to the debt crisis. They have dropped the spend and evidence that says that there is no impact and the debt is sustainable. This zeroes the societal resilience arguments on case. It says that the U.S. debt is not far ahead. It's not a significant outlier in terms of sustainability, and with ways to help support the debt burden. There are innovations that make debt the more manageable monetary policy can adapt to changing conditions, and the Fed is moving towards a dynamic that makes the level of debt far more tenable, which proves that we can solve conventional deterrence. There's no ICBM's key warrants to this from to links and net benefit because the advantage capital maintains ICBMs in the plan. Gets rid of that. We don't need to solve advantages. We have KCBMs for that on that component of the advantage of the one arrow was bad on. Now the Russia dissenters concede there's no impact to nuclear. They also concede that the Af can't solve on advantage one, which means there's no straight turn, the arms control advantage. I'm going to extend defense here because I don't think that one arrow handles it correctly. They just say that 0.38% is not about accident. It's not true. U.S.-Russia war is not happening, and neither is great power war. The two and the evidence is that aversion to escalate is embedded in Russia's nuclear doctrine, which proves by Ukraine saying conventional Emory and Rodriguez says that the shots are so low because there isn't political will or capacity for another war, which implicates great power war. Also, let alone one that escalates to nuclear use, or one is the evidence says that Putin and all other leaders are all talking. The public hates him because the war is unpopular, understands the devastating effect, so he'll always back down. Now, the procurement advantage, there's zero shots at an accident. In fact, the only thing that one here says is systemic checks fail because redundancy. This is not true because redundancy significantly decreased. There is a step-by-step process of decoding, authenticating, targeting, and logic has multiple actors involved at each step of the ICBM. It is not compressed decision making. The one see Geller evidence described the intelligence assets that are prerequisite to combine civilian military involvement in decision making, all of which is proves the thesis of hair trigger alert. The evidence is that the last close call was in 1970. Even that was a Soviet side computer glitch, not a US side computer glitch. There's no escalation. Even if this does happen, close calls have never resulted in a war. Humans are always still when they have a cognitive bias to de-escalate. Society resilience impact was answered above, but ICBMs are stabilizing. There's no risk of a great power war or a miscast scenario. Wars are started by choice, not accidents. They don't stumble into major coffee that neither design, and the idea that one fired nuke would cause an unstoppable reaction as a pipe agreement has never happened in history before. That's Quackenbush. New early warning systems ensure that US and Russia are not pressurized to launch immediately, which just proves the only warrant they have for why ICBM launch is quick waiting is the priority option for both countries that are first strike for either would not neutralize all nukes, which means that there significantly decreases the incentive to launch first. Second is empirics. There's no major war that has been accidental. Countries are tactical and will go down and retreat, which just proves their cyber argument because cyber defense is not assumed that cyber defense does assume the sentinel, and there's no catastrophic cyber attack because attribution fails, espionage and coercion. There's no incentive or they have no interest in conducting it.
Callahan is going to be confused by this order because he just walked in.
I know exactly what happened next to me.
It is advantage 2, advantage 1. The advantage counter plan, planets, T.
So procurement, arms control, advantage counter plan, planets, T.
I do actually really badly need water. But I swear solemnly not to think at all about the 2 AR in the next 30 seconds. I don't know what about idiot-proofing Emory didn't understand what this air is toward to and are, but if we win topicality, we win the rest of the debate because they have structurally no risk of offense because the perm is a yes, no question, which means that it is tried to solve our nuclear war impact. We are only going for the procurement scenario, social resilience, and the conventional deterrence impacts. The GBSC will eat the DoD budget now that drains money from conventional deterrence and bioattacks, cyber conflict, and broadly social resilience and things like pandemics, Russian and Chinese fate, conflict, and gray zone escalations, which answers their accidents, events, in the 2 and R because those things will be intentional. Wars being started on purpose means that is an affirmative argument for we need conventional deterrence at the low level, and the ICBM is useless for that because it is a nuclear weapon which eats the rest of the DoD budget that is important for controlling broadly escalation that escalates to great power, where the 2 and R is asking you to dice roll. Those things do escalate. They impose structural instability on society, and the convergence of risk is likely. And the 2 and R drops the words about bioterrorism and pandemics. The 2 and R is asking you to dice roll on no great power wherever, which you should not do. Gray zone likely, and wars intentional is after they have no risk of offense because the perm is yes, no. Now the arms control advantage was largely ended above because they are asking you to say there is never any great power war when they have dropped that the U.S. will not have a Department of Defense anymore. And per the what I see, internal evidence they did not extend the GBSC as cheap, and we have read specific internal evidence that it will eat the conventional deterrence budget. If you think that structurally makes nuclear war more likely, then you can vote affirmative. The advantage counter plan, Nora, so kindly wrote for me. It is absurd. It spent $1.3 trillion on building the GBSC program, which is the largest in history, projected to be equivalent of the DoD's entire budget. Even if their evidence seems optimistic about the impact of that, it is not assumed that tax people trillions of dollars. It would take months to recover, which weakens domestic spending and societal resilience. Tool and the effects of that is necessary to build a pandemic infrastructure, invest in energy resilience, pandemic preparedness, etc. That is coming now. Adverting risk, cost, extinction, info warfare, bioweapons, military, AI, cyber attacks, has made critical infrastructure cost, pandemics, and unknown catastrophes, which is the Ferrari evidence dropped. Even if you give the military a blank check for spending, that is ineffective because they will sort of just take all of the money and use it to authorize. If you infinitely fund the military, they will use it to authorize projects that are not useful, which means that being sort of parsimonious is not spending is key, and infinitely spending does not solve our conventional deterrence impact. That 2 and R largely answers our debt impact, which is not the thing that we are going for. It is to sentence highlighted. We are not saying that it causes a debt crisis or part of the argument is that it causes a debt crisis in the U.S. The other part of it is that it makes military spending stupid and inefficient, which causes our conventional deterrence, Now, permutation to both mobs of residual offense, and the 2 and R does not have a justification for combining counterplans, so you should assume that they can't do it. The plan is counterplay. Who cares about extinction outweighs because the plan kills the sort of conflict of threats kills everyone, which is the one you see impact of it is for 400 million people in their card. The site surviving is insufficient because the nuclear war is still global genocide, which is bad, and the permutation is definitive. Evaluated as yes, no, it is not 1% risk because this is just not at all affecting what the plan does. And if fiance second strike with current tech, that the plan does not cancel for trial 65 years, which we've been explicitly clear about from when you see cross on. The court evidence says that we will have the minimum rate for 60 until 2065, which means that if fiat is immediate, they order a strike with that technology now. The only thing the plan mandates now is that we get rid of the Sentinel that causes the drawdown to zero in the long term when life extended, whatever the word is, fails. But the permutation fiats using those weapons of the status quo, which takes us from the 400 we have now to 390. Topicality means the counterplan does not compete. You should not evaluate it as yes, no, because this is just plainly not competitive. There's no risk of the plan. The counterplan affects what the plan does. And if fiance strike with current technology, the plan is not canceled for 65 years. Since fiat is immediate, the perm solves. There's no severance. We are very clear about what the plan does. When we win topicality, then we win the permutation. T. Framing issue, the affirmative does eliminate ICBMs just solely. The negative deterrence and assurance links because we take immediate action, but the negative does not solve limits because infinite and a few subsets then disarm subsets after more squirrely because it is more difficult to defend. Then we should have nuclear weapons and specific contingencies than having nuclear weapons in the abstract. Sorry, back to the counterplan. If they wanted this counterplan to complete, they could have just said strike on Mars and Saturn or whatever with the Sentinel, which would have been competitive, which mops up any of the residual offense. Topicality, there is not an interpretation in this debate we do not meet because our interpretation modifies theirs. The affirmative is certain and immediate. It immediately mandates canceling the Sentinel and then getting to zero. If elimination is a gradual process, which is a set of cards they have dropped, that they certainly and immediately mandating that gradual process is topical. It is the equivalent of saying I should restrict my unhealthy habits by starting a diet. That means that I immediately and certainly should start, but starting itself does not mandate that I immediately finish the diet. It makes the most grammatical sense and is most to do it. This will slide to the 1 AR. If elimination of nukes is itself gradual, there's no way to immediately and certainly do a gradual process. The problem is that Emory does not counter-define elimination. Their countercards say that it requires removal, which the plan does do. Emory should stop doing the thing that they look at each other after the 1 AR finishes the flow. They want to go for it not, and then stop flowing because it makes it immediately obvious what the 2 R is going to be. Now, the framing issue for their limits and ground arguments, we do link to deterrence and assurance that it's easy to say that we should have ICMs in the long term in the plan. Fiat's immediate action, which our interpretation requires the affirmative to do, which means that you still get signaling links about assurance and deterrence. You even still get your CMR links, but the 2 R is essentially going for we need to be able to go for politics, which you also can do against this affirmative because of Fiat's immediate action, not immediate elimination of the ICBM triad, but also going for assurance and deterrence is more educational and facilitates more in-depth class debates than their interpretation. They do not solve any of their limits arguments because NFU and disarm subsets means that you could take an individual strike plan off the table or disarm an individual weapon. If that is topical, the affirmative is also topical because the affirmative disarms the sentinel, which is also a dropped argument. CMR in politics is a terrible argument. Deterrence and assurance is much better, and the should definition of the plan happens now, but it causes elimination of the leg in 2065. Bad counterplays do not universally lose to theory, but we are not really, but our offense is premised on affirmative ground. If we have to immediately eliminate the arsenal, the negative always gets overpowered. Pigs and bad counterplays do not immediately lose to theory, but it is worse to debate the gradualism counterplay than the gradualism app because you can't read assurance and deterrence against yourself, which structurally jacks off ground. It makes for stale debates where the topic is extremely small, which means that the opener and the NDT are the exact same. That app innovation is crucial because we mitigated their limits and ground arguments, and the 2R does not have a definition of elimination, which frames the rest of the resolution. It means there is an interpretation that we do not meet. All of the rest of the stuff, only we have offense, which means that T is fired at. Good debate.